New photos of Anthony Joshua's wrecked car show how he came within inches of death after a crash in Nigeria. The heavyweight British boxing champion was travelling in a Lexus Jeep when it smashed into a stationary truck shortly after 11 a.m. 2 of the 5 people involved in the crash tragically lost their lives, but Joshua survived with just minor injuries and was taken to a local hospital. A friend of the star said that he's okay, but badly shaken up.
Just to give some context for any of our listeners and viewers who don't have the full picture, it happened on a major road near the Nigerian city of Lagos. That was at around midday local time yesterday, 11 a.m. UK time here. The 2 men who lost their lives were both Joshua's friends, but also parts of his close team, which makes it all the more tragic. So Sina Gami was his strength and conditioning coach, and Latif Ayo Deli was his personal trainer. Absolutely awful news that Joshua's lost both of those 2. He emerged from the wreckage in one piece, which we're all grateful for here at Talk Sport. For context as well, the Nigerian officials say the black Lexus they were in collided with a stationary red truck. It was on this Lagos to Ibadan expressway. It's known as one of Nigeria's deadliest roads, with particularly heavy traffic, Jeff, at this time of year, as many Nigerians are heading back to their home country to spend some time with their loved ones over the festive period. We're told the car they were in actually lost control during an overtaking manoeuvre and then crashed into this stationary truck on the side of the road. Pictures circulating on social media after the crash show a crowd of onlookers then gathering around the wreckage. Joshua then emerging from that vehicle, and many people who have seen that on the back pages of many national newspapers today, and the front pages actually. Both Joshua and the driver survived, so 2 managed to emerge in one piece. 2 sadly lost their lives. They were immediately evacuated, Jeff, to a specialised medical facility in Lagos, which is one of the major cities in Nigeria.
This whole situation has completely rocked the boxing community in ways that nobody could have predicted. When something this devastating happens to someone like Anthony Joshua, it creates ripples that go far beyond just one person or one sport.
Just a horrible thing. Wishing the best for the families going forward. Anthony Joshua, according to people that have talked to him since this, is like physically okay. The injuries weren't like super severe. He's shaken up, which obviously makes sense. The fact that anyone is walking away from this accident alive is nothing shy of a miracle. The carnage is horrifying. Now, I want to make a little special mention here to the CNN article I read on this, because at the very end it had this statement: Joshua could not immediately be reached for a comment. No shit. You just blow in from Stupid Town? Obviously he's not going to immediately be scrambling to give you a statement for your piece. Why would you even bother, like, reaching out or trying to get a statement from him a mere, what, hour, 2 hours or something after a fatal car accident that claimed the lives of 2 of his best friends? That's crazy to me.
Right now, Joshua is working through his recovery after losing 2 people who weren't just colleagues but genuine friends who were right there with him when everything went wrong. These weren't random acquaintances we're talking about here. These were members of his inner circle who meant something real to him.
Now, the information is coming in gradually, but as we know right now, Joshua and two very close friends of his, members of his team, were traveling in a Lexus SUV around 11 a.m. in a very congested part of a town, Lagos. And apparently there are reports that the car was traveling at a high rate of speed and had a flat tire and actually collided with a stationary vehicle on the side of the road. Unfortunately, there were two deceased people involved in this car accident, and two of them were Joshua's close friends and trainers by the names of Latif and Sina. Now, more information as we are getting it. Matchroom Boxing actually released a statement on it just minutes ago saying Anthony Joshua was involved in a road traffic accident in Lagos, Nigeria earlier today. With profound sadness, it has been confirmed that two close friends and members, Sina and Latz, have tragically passed away. Matchroom Boxing and 258 BXG can confirm that Joshua sustained injuries in the accident and was taken to a hospital for checks and treatment. He is in a stable condition and will remain there for observation.
The information coming out now is painting a much more complete and honestly heartbreaking picture of what actually went down that day. What we're learning is hitting harder than anyone expected when this story first broke.
Throughout the boxing community, these are two guys. Even Most Valuable Promotions co-founder Nikisa Badarian said, I was just with these guys last week. This is absolutely devastating. If you go to social media, Anthony Joshua's most recent story on Instagram is also a video of him playing table tennis with one of the deceased. This was completely unexpected. No one saw anything like this coming. They were actually going to Nigeria to celebrate the victory, spend some time for the holidays with Joshua's family and loved ones, and then something so tragic like this happens. Mojo, we were just talking about Anthony Joshua for the past few weeks. There's video of Joshua at the scene looking pretty banged up, but amazing to hear that Anthony Joshua is doing okay, and it sounds like he will be fine.
Here's where we stand with the facts as they're being reported. Joshua was making his way through Lagos during the late morning hours when everything changed in an instant. He had two close team members riding with him in their SUV when disaster struck.
So traumatic.
Anthony Joshua's close friend and longtime coach joined the heavyweight boxer out in Nigeria for a heartbreaking reason. It has now been revealed. 36-year-old Sinagami has been hailed as an angel by his heartbreaking uncle after he was killed in a car crash out in Nigeria alongside friend Latif Latz Aliadeli. Sina and Latz were sitting on the opposite side of the car to Joshua as the pair died instantly when their Lexus SUV smashed into a parked truck. Tributes have poured in from all corners of the boxing world for the beloved duo. Sina's uncle, Sharai Rami, says his nephew was far more than just a client to Joshua, as he revealed the touching reason why he joined the Olympian on the trip. Both Joshua and Latif shared Nigerian family roots and would often go back to the West African nation to be with their loved ones. But Sina, the owner of a major gym group in the UK, came along as he didn't want AJ to ever be alone during their planned week-long trip. Shariah told The Times they were friends, Anthony Joshua and Sina. They worked together, but they began as friends. Even on this trip, he didn't want him to be alone, so he went with him. Joshua is continuing to recover from the fatal crash out in Nigeria, as he revealed on Tuesday, I feel pain all over my body. Sources close to the 36-year-old British fighter told The Sun that AJ had searing pain in his knees and cried out in agony as he was rescued from the wreckage of the Lexus 4x4 on Monday. Despite his injuries, tests have revealed Joshua suffered no fractures. The star will remain in hospital, however, over the new year, while medics and his mum keep an eye on him and carry out any further.
Then voice.
We're looking at a collision that was absolutely catastrophic in its impact. What appears to have happened is a tire malfunction caused their vehicle to slam into a stationary car. It's one of those scenarios that shows just how fast your entire world can flip upside down.
Just a horrible thing. Wishing the best for the families going forward. Anthony Joshua, according to people that have talked to him since this, is like physically okay. The injuries weren't like super severe. He's shaken up, which obviously makes sense. The fact that anyone is walking away from this accident alive is nothing shy of a miracle. The carnage is horrifying. Now, I want to make a little special mention here to the CNN article I read on this, because at the very end it had this statement: Joshua could not immediately be reached for a comment. No shit. You just blow in from Stupid Town? Obviously he's not going to immediately be scrambling to give you a statement for your piece. Why would you even bother, like, reaching out or trying to get a statement from him a mere, what, hour, 2 hours or something after a fatal car accident that claimed the lives of 2 of his best friends? That's crazy to me. That's just like a lack.
The crash took the lives of both friends who were traveling alongside Joshua. These weren't just professional relationships, but people who genuinely cared about him and chose to be there for support and companionship.
Of humanity. Like, quick, get Joshua on the horn ASAP. We need to hear from him about what he's feeling right now so I can write about it and make money off it real quickly in my piece. What do you mean he doesn't want to talk to us? That doesn't make any sense. Fine, alright, I'll just go ahead and say he couldn't be reached for a comment. How selfish. I understand it's just like standard journalism, but that kind of thing always just rubs me the wrong way in the event of a tragedy where they try and, like, reach out to whoever survived it or something as quickly as they can so they can be, like, the first outlet to have a statement from them. I don't know, that never really fully sits right with me. Anyway though, like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't normally cover things like this, but when I was learning about this story, I don't know, man, it was just such a terrible thing, and it's a very scary reminder of just how quickly life can change, where things can be going amazing for you in life, right? Like Anthony Joshua just recently was talking about having the best weekend of his life with everything going on. And then just from out of nowhere, at the height of everything going really well, a heartbreaking tragedy can occur. It's just sad and scary. It's just fucking terrifying. You've just got to cherish life every second of it. Every second you spend in this corporeal realm is a gift. And, you know, it's just, you never know what can happen. So I'm wishing the best to the families of Latz and Cena moving forward, and wishing a speedy recovery to Anthony Joshua and the other survivor from this tragedy. And I just kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit because when I was reading about it, man, it was...
Matchroom Boxing has put out confirmation that Joshua sustained injuries and was rushed to medical care, where he's now listed as stable and under careful monitoring. Given how bad this could have been, that's something to be grateful for, even in the middle of all this pain.
It happened out in Nigeria. It's just sad. It just makes you realise how valuable life is, and how things can change in a heartbeat. So when we talk about fights and we talk about beefs, and you know, these things are just nothing when it comes to real life and losing your life. So it was a sad thing to hear, a sad thing to see. God knows how it'll affect those that saw it mentally, emotionally. But you've got to think about these 2 men were somebody's child, someone's brother, and that's what you've got to think about. Those people that have lost their lives. Now that is the saddest thing you could ever even imagine, and you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. And now it's just somehow, you know, it's a bit early to say, but it's somehow trying to recover from that and build from that. It's just to me, it makes you just appreciate those close to you. You know, when my mum passed away, all my mates, I saw them just cling close to their mum, because it made them realise, oh my God, that could be me. And so you just, when you see things like that, it just brings you down to earth.
The response from the boxing community has been overwhelming, and it's coming from absolutely everywhere you can imagine. People are struggling to process how something so normal turns so tragic so quickly.
How would you kind of maybe advise or think somebody could deal with that type of grief?
You know, you've got to have some kind of mental makeup to be a boxer, never mind anything else. So I think death affects us all, and some of us react differently. Some of us are stronger to deal with these things and can put things in compartments. Some of us aren't. Boxers are no different from any other human being, and our hearts can break. Your souls can be broken. Mentally, depends on. Can you imagine seeing that? Can you imagine being involved in that area? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine those being your friends? You can't even imagine, you know, the trauma, the mental trauma that would how that would affect anybody, even people passing the other way. So again, this is something that you only see happen to somebody else. Happens in a movie, and so again, it's just, listen.
What makes this even more gut-wrenching is looking at Joshua's recent social media where you can see him just living life normally with one of the men who didn't make it home. It drives home how nobody sees something like this coming.
AJ, you've got a guardian angel, my friend. God has his arms wrapped around you then. Condolences to the deceased. So terrible, young people. It just goes to show you, it's a stark reminder, but people, you've got to start paying attention. When driving a vehicle, you've got to be on clock at all times in a sound mind. Please don't drink. When you think it's all right, it's not. Please don't drug. When you think you can, you can't. It's a stark reminder that life's most fragile when you're enjoying yourself at the most. You know, when you're in a good time and you're not thinking and everything's dandy, that's when tragedy can strike. That's when you're most vulnerable. So may God give the deceased a good bed in heaven, 2 young men. But people have to wake up and start learning and start putting it out there to people that you can't drive a vehicle at speed, you can't drink and drive, you can't drug and drive. Not saying any of these boys have been doing that, not at all. I'm just putting it out there, you know, because it's the time of year, it's Christmas, it's New Year, now you've got to be careful the most, you know, especially for people walking about, other people, you know, when you get in the car you must think of them, be in a sound mind and competent and pay due care and attention to everything you do. Again, condolences to the deceased's family. 2 young men should never have happened. AJ, God had his arms wrapped around you tight, you know, because looking at that crash, you're one lucky guy. And I'm pleased you're alive, son. I'm pleased you're alive. God bless you.
This was supposed to be a happy time for Joshua, a chance to connect with family back in Nigeria and create positive memories. Instead, it became the kind of nightmare that changes someone forever. Video from the crash site shows Joshua clearly traumatized by what he witnessed, but medical reports suggest his physical recovery should progress well, even though the emotional healing will take much longer.
So horrible for him because those were his friends and trainers.
His childhood friends.
Time, right?
Yep. And he almost lost his life too. He got very lucky.
Yeah, he did. I wonder what will. I imagine you would need a lot of time out of the spotlight after that.
I don't know if he'll come back to boxing.
New information is coming out about exactly who these 2 men were and why their loss hit so deep. We're talking about people who genuinely cared about Joshua's well-being beyond any professional obligation.
Really even gone into verbalizing it yet, and the way the PTSD that he may feel from this, not to mention, obviously it doesn't look as though he's got any serious injuries at the moment. But who knows? That will transpire as the days go on. You know, whether he has any vascular injuries or not. It will be, you know, personal trainer and exercise rehab coach, these 2 guys, obviously to him. But like you say, if he's taking them, his family are from Ogun State, Anthony's. If he's got these guys with him as part of his team, they're close aides, close friends. He's going to have lost 2 very close friends, 2 members of his team who are part of his mental, psychological and spiritual scaffolding. He will have to recover from this in all those ways, as well as physically, to go again, especially as it looked like he was going to be fighting late in February, potentially in Riyadh, against names such as Rico Verhoeven, who had been mentioned, the great Dutch kickboxer. That was one of the people mentioned. It may not have been him.
One of them was a coach who decided to make the trip specifically so Joshua wouldn't have to travel alone. That tells you everything about the kind of relationships we're dealing with here. Real loyalty and friendship that went way beyond business.
I think it will take longer for Anthony Joshua to get back in the ring now. The other side of it, Raheem, is that he may feel that he wants to go in there to do something for their families, to make their names resonant, to fight in memory of his friends and his aides, and only he will know right now. And we haven't had a statement from him yet, have we? So I expect that will come in the next few days. And you just wonder whether he doesn't need to fight anymore. He doesn't have to earn money anymore. He's incredibly wealthy, generationally wealthy. He may even decide, that's it. This is a sign. That's it.
but he may decide it's the opposite. There's so many. I mean, this is conjecture from me now, but it will be very interesting to see what he says and how he moves from here.
Both men were sitting across from Joshua when their SUV collided with the parked truck. The impact killed them immediately, which had to be absolutely horrifying to witness firsthand. Support messages are flooding in from around the globe as Joshua continues his hospital stay dealing with serious pain, but thankfully, no broken bones. It's honestly incredible that anyone walked away from something this severe.
Josh was one of the biggest stars in the sport of boxing, and the fact that he has just come off a massive, massive moment for his career, and his notoriety and his spotlight is a big reason why he's back home in Nigeria in the first place. And this story obviously starts with his name, but it doesn't end there. As Anthony Joshua, luckily by the grace of God, and by the way, I should say, prayers to everybody involved and their families, to those that have passed. I pray for grace for their family in this heightened era of social media where everybody is more focused on the attention grabbing, on the headline, on the click. And as we'll see in a second, more people are focused on filming at the scene of a crime versus having some damn grace and some humility and trying to help people. But just an all-around awful situation. Joshua was, like I said, in Nigeria with two of his best friends. Again, I want to be sensitive here. I don't know the full names of these people, but and I certainly won't be showing any video of the deceased in today's video. I've seen that video going around on Twitter today, and again, makes me sick to my stomach to watch people parade around videos of the deceased laying deceased in the road and showing them no grace. That's just disgusting.
He's being monitored closely while doctors help him recover from both the physical trauma and the psychological impact of losing people so close to him in such a sudden way.
Who they were.
Obviously, we know that a place like Nigeria doesn't have necessarily the best infrastructure for emergency services like this, but that's a different conversation, maybe for a different day. I don't want to use this time and my coverage of this incident to talk about the impoverished kind of nation of Nigeria or the entire state of their emergency services as a whole. But what I do find frustrating, because that part, that's a systemic issue. That's something that has to be addressed from the top down, because Anthony Joshua is one of the richest people probably to come out of that country, worth 150 million pounds. And today you saw him being pushed out of a car by individuals. You saw him being pulled into another car, a police car, in the front seat. No ambulance, no emergency services, no EMTs, no blocking off the scene, no trying to protect the fatal and treat them with the respect they deserve, even in death.
So what are your thoughts?
People from completely different sports are speaking out about how terrible this whole thing is. Charles White Jr. from the MMA world called it horrible and pointed out how amazing it is that anyone survived what happened. He made the point that while Joshua's injuries weren't life-threatening or bone-breaking, the mental trauma of watching two close friends die right in front of you is something that cuts much deeper than physical pain ever could. White also called out media outlets that were trying to get statements from Joshua just hours after people died, which shows a complete lack of basic human decency. The man just watched his friends die and reporters wanted quotes for their stories. What really gets to you is thinking about the timeline here. Joshua had just experienced one of the biggest victories of his entire career, and then within days, he's dealing with the worst tragedy of his life. White talks about how this shows you just how fast everything can change. One moment, you're celebrating at the top of your game, and the next moment, you're questioning everything because people you care about are gone forever. His message about appreciating every moment melee hits home when you consider how Joshua went from the highest point to the lowest point in just a matter of days. Life can turn completely upside down before you even realize what's happening. The condolences going out to the families of the men who died and wishes for recovery for Joshua and anyone else involved serve as this terrifying reminder that none of us know what tomorrow brings. Johnny Nelson added some perspective that really puts everything in context about what matters and what doesn't. He's talking about how this tragedy shows you what real loss looks like compared to boxing rivalries and fights. When you lose young people who were somebody's children and brothers and friends, it makes you realize that most of the stuff we argue about and stress over is pretty meaningless in the big picture. This kind of loss forces you to think about the people in your own life and how much they mean to you, because situations like this prove they could be taken away at any moment without warning. Nelson stressed how events like this create emotional damage that affects everyone who hears about it, not just Joshua, but anyone who stops to really think about what happened here. He made the point that grief doesn't care how tough you are or how much training you've done. Even elite athletes who seem indestructible are still human beings who feel pain and loss just like everyone else. The trauma of watching something this devastating happen right in front of you is the kind of thing most people only see in movies. It's a life-changing experience that stays with you forever and changes how you see everything. John Fury shared his thoughts, calling Joshua lucky to be alive, which is absolutely the truth when you look at how this could have ended. His condolences to the family show the respect everyone has for what was lost. He used this as a chance to remind people about road safety, especially during busy holiday periods when accidents become more common. His message about driving sober and focused is something everyone needs to hear. Even when everything seems fine and normal, tragedy can happen in seconds. It's a reminder to value life and take care of the people around you, because situations like this prove how quickly everything can change. Iggy Azalea weighed in from outside the boxing world, talking about how shocking it is to see life change this fast. She's looking at this from a completely different angle, but seeing the same devastating reality. She pointed out the deep personal loss Joshua is dealing with, losing people who were essential parts of his life and career. She also noted how fortunate he was to survive when others didn't make it out. Her question about whether this might make Joshua step back from public life or even boxing entirely is something worth considering. After trauma like this, some people need to completely change direction. Her raw reaction about how your life can be over in 1 second captures the emotion of how unfair and sudden this whole thing was. Gareth Davies brought up the psychological impact this will have on Joshua going forward. While his body might heal, the emotional damage from losing close friends and key team members is going to be much harder to overcome. These weren't just colleagues, but people who provided mental and spiritual support. Replacing that kind of relationship is incredibly difficult and takes time that goes way beyond physical recovery. With potential fights being discussed, including possible matchups that would require Joshua to be mentally sharp, the question becomes whether he can get back to that place after what he's been through. Davies suggested this accident could delay Joshua's return to fighting, but also raised the possibility that he might fight in honor of his friends, as a way to keep their memory alive and find meaning in the tragedy. The choice of how to move forward belongs entirely to Joshua, and nobody else can tell him what the right decision is. With his financial security, he doesn't need to fight for money, which gives him freedom to take whatever time he needs. The next few weeks or months will show whether he sees this as a sign to step back from boxing while he can, or whether he channels this tragedy into motivation for his next chapter as a way of honoring what was lost. Willard Plemons brought up both the tragedy itself and the disturbing social media response, which adds another layer of sadness to everything that's happened. While Joshua's fame makes him the headline, the real focus should be on the loss of 2 lives and the families who are going through unimaginable grief right now. He criticized people who filmed and shared graphic footage from the crash, calling it disrespectful and showing how some people have lost basic compassion. Treating someone's tragedy as entertainment or content is deeply wrong. He highlighted problems with emergency response at the scene, noting the lack of formal help in Nigeria, which made an already horrible situation even worse. Seeing someone as high profile as Joshua being helped by random people instead of trained emergency responders shows serious systemic issues that shouldn't be ignored. The absence of ambulances and proper scene management is shocking when you think about what emergency response should look like. The victims deserve better care and respect than what they received. This tragic accident has shaken the entire boxing world and raised questions about how Anthony Joshua moves forward from here. The road to recovery, both physical and emotional, is going to be long and difficult. What's clear is that Joshua has lost 2 people who meant something real to him, and that kind of loss changes someone forever. How he chooses to honor their memory and rebuild his life is something only he can decide.